So overbrowse issues in food plots can be a real issue for a lot of guys when they have limited food plot acres or they just have a lot of mouths to feed. Now, the easy answer would be to say, just shoot more deer or throw up an electric fence around your plots, but I like having a lot of deer on our farm, and I like being able to feed the deer all year round on our farm. So I'm going to talk about 3 other ways that you can help to prevent overbrowse issues on your food plot so that you can have deer on them all season long. All right, so here's the easy one. If your woods look like this, where you can see 100 to 200 yards through them, you can see this one, I can see all the way to the next ridge. This is not good. This is not food for your deer, and this is not cover for your deer. So you need to fix this. You need to get out and you need to start doing some chainsaw work so that you can get your property holding more deer and you can get more food on your property. See, there's my wide open woods, and I pan this way, and here's a spot that some chainsaw work was done just, I think, 1 winter ago. And what are the deer doing? They are in here browsing on all these stumps. This is deer food. This is what our deer survive on in the winter, and this is going to help prevent overbrowse issues in your plots. And the key with this is merely getting sunlight down to the forest floor. See here, got a hole in the canopy, and just like that, we have food right here for the deer. So if your woods looks like a park like that, that's not good. That's not food. If you want to start taking some pressure off your plots, you need to start getting all your other fallow areas and timbered areas to start working for you and act as deer food so that the deer don't solely rely on your food plots. I mean, look at this. This is just loaded with browse. The deer are smashing this because this is what they need. All right, tip number 2 is to start sticking food in or on your travel corridors. You can start to overseed some of your bedding areas that you cut in, and you can overseed shooting lanes. So right here, this isn't food right now because this was seeded in white Dutch clover and chicory. But during the deer season, up until that kind of mid-October-ish, the deer were on this. So that helps to take that browse pressure off of our food plots. And the food plots are kind of those main candy crops. They are still a destination even when you do some seeding in the timber. The other reason why I like seeding down my shooting lanes is because it gets the deer to stop when they're cutting through. You know, you might not get that doe or that buck to stop, but you can get the doe to stop. If you got a buck dog and a doe, especially since I have chicory in here, which is pretty good right up into the rut, I'll get that doe to stop and then I can get my shot at a buck. But this is just an easy way to stick more food on your property by seeding your shooting lanes, seeding some of your larger travel corridors if you have some cut in with a forestry mulcher. Now here's a bedding cut that was seeded down with some clover. Now, you don't have to do this. You're going to still get ample browse just by cutting in, but just by cutting down trees. You can see there's all kinds of stems in here. But I like to keep these big open runways because this is where the deer will navigate through here. If you give them a path of least resistance, they're going to use it. So I keep the open runways. And sometimes when we have these open runways, you're going to get unwanteds. Like in here, I had a lot of thistle come in. So I decided to kill back the thistle and plant clover in here to help suppress that thistle regeneration, and also add a little additional food to this bedding cut. I don't do this in all my bedding cuts, but it is an easy way to stick a little more food in here and give a little diversity of food options in your bedding cuts. Here's another spot just loaded with woody stems, and this is the goal. You get a ton of this, you start managing all of your timber, and you get this, you will take browse pressure off of your plots. I mean, this area is just loaded with cover, and it's loaded with food. I mean, look at all these young stems right here, more mature stems up the hill where they're getting more sunlight. This is what you want. You do not, this used to be wide open spaces, no cover, just big old trees like this guy right here. Now it's blasted wide open, and we got lots of food for the deer. This one I think is one of the easiest things that you can do to get more food on your property. Now this is summer food, but it's still gonna go a long way to help take that pressure off of your food plots. So in this particular area, if I walk in here, this used to be just a sea of cool season junk non-native grass. This goes all the way through this old pasture. So what I did is I came in and I sprayed clethodim mixed with crop oil several years in a row, and I killed back that cool season grass, and I released all this herbaceous growth. So if I were to kick the snow away here, there's very, very little grass left. There's a little bit in there. Probably spray it again this year, but very little grass left. But if you want to do this conversion, you got to stay consistent with those sprayings. So I will hit the first year or two, I'll probably spray twice. Right when that grass gets out of the ground, I'll spray them with 16 ounces of clethodim, 32 ounces of crop oil per acre. Smoke the grass. Clethodim is a grass-specific herbicide. And then let it die back and maybe do one more spraying later in the summer. But you got to stay consistent because there's a lot of cool season grass seed in the seed bed, so you will get more coming back, and you want to do this for several years in a row if you want to make this conversion. But what you end up getting then is a lot of broadleaf herbaceous plants that are phenomenal summer food for the deer. There's been plenty of times where I've come into this area in the summer and I'll see deer standing up on this hillside here. We got soybeans, well, it's egg down there, but every other year there's soybeans down there, and there's been times where this has been just herbaceous growth and the soybeans are right there, and I see the deer in here. So if you can take an area that was previously worthless, cool season grass is worthless to the deer, you can convert it, you can release the seed bed, and you can get good stuff coming back. You are going to get more deer in these areas browsing during the summer. Therefore, you're going to take the browse pressure off of your plots so that right when they sprout out of the ground, they're not getting smashed by the deer. This particular area had a lot of good stuff coming back. I think there's 3 or 4 different types of goldenrod that popped out here. One was Canada goldenrod, which is I found to be really attractive to deer. I get a lot of medium red clover and some volunteer, probably I'm assuming it's white Dutch clover, popping out here. It just must be in the seed bed from years past, but I'll get a ton of volunteer clover, some prickly lettuce, which is good for the deer. I'll get some milkweed in some spots, which the deer don't necessarily browse that much, but I like it for the monarchs and things like that. The moral of the story is that I see a lot of spots like this that were just a sea of junk grass, but if you attack them with herbicide, you will release that seed bed and you'll actually get some food for your deer. If you really want to expedite the process, you do a burn after you spray, but you don't necessarily need to do that to get this kind of response. This area was never burnt, and I got tons of broadleaf plants in here. You may get some thistle when you're doing this kind of conversion, so make sure that you spot treat the thistle that comes back. Sometimes I got a little mullein too, which is another invasive that I didn't want to see out here. So you can spot treat any potential invasives that pop. But if you get at it, maybe take an acre or 2 at a time and start converting it. This will give you a lot of good summer food for the deer, and it's also phenomenal fawning and brood rearing cover. This is not winter food. This is not fall food and limited fall cover. So know that going into it. I don't want you to have, your entire property looking like this, but if you do have some fallow spots that you want to build up quickly into deer food, this is an easy way to do it. The moral of the story with trying to get the browse pressure off of your food plots is basically you're trying to make the rest of your property, the fallow areas, the timbered areas, have some type of food value in them. Now, there's spots like this. You can see where I got a thick strip of switchgrass. Obviously, that's going to be a spot in my screening strips I'm not going to want to have much food. But all your other areas, try to make them work for you so that they have some type of benefit, some type of value for the deer. And that's why I build up plenty of areas like this. That's why I'm constantly doing work in the timber, because I want to feed the deer 365 on our farm. So I have good summer food, I have good fall food, I have good winter food, and then I have stuff sprouting back in the spring to feed the deer in the spring as well. I'm not just focused on what I put in my food plots. So get at it and start building up the habitat in your property. The deer will thank you. All right, y'all take care. God bless.